Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday, August 19th, and welcome to another edition of the Spin Zone, the only MLB K-prop show that goes into the level of detail that you need to consistently win. I'm your host, Spin Doc. And this show is brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please do subscribe and share the stream. We appreciate the love, and you get access to all of our content. We got a whole bunch of NFL stuff out there, a whole bunch more stuff coming. And please follow me at Spin Doc Sports on X. Like the video. We do again appreciate the love. So thank you all so much. It was a good night all around last night. A couple of things I'll talk about about the ones we talked about on the show that pretty much hit exactly like we discussed. The VIP went 3-1. It was an overall good night. As a famous TV show that probably predates a lot of people here used to say, I love it when a plan comes together. So plan came together quite well. Let's talk about last night real quick. The first one we have to talk about is, oh my, did he get clobbered? I said that I didn't find a ton of paths to getting to the higher numbers for Logan Gilbert. But man, I did not expect this. Logan Gilbert got obliterated. Only lasted 2 innings, gave up 2 home runs, just got clobbered. And really what happened is when you break it down and look into the detailed metrics, the Phillies had him scouted cold. And the reason why I say that is because they swung in the zone 80% of the time. And this is a Phillies team who, and we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday, was they can have some zone take, but they did not take against Logan Gilbert. They swung early, they swung often, and they made 93% zone contact. Logan Gilbert pitched very similar to how he's been pitching, which is to try to throw early fastballs, try to get strikes, which then sets up his splitter, which bounces over the plate, or his slider, which runs low and away. Now, that can't happen when when teams are swinging at those early pitches and putting the ball into play. And that was his downfall, was he didn't really change a whole lot throughout his outing. Now, towards the end, he started going more slider and actually ended up through more sliders. Through just as many sliders as he did four-seam fastballs. So the real question becomes, because we did play his under in VIP, we cashed it quite easily. The question here becomes, is this a trend, or is this an aberration? And I don't believe that anything is a trend until I see it happen multiple games in a row, for sure. Like, for example, Mackenzie Gore's spin being down. That's not a trend. That's real. That's a thing. Because Logan Gilbert, on his four-seam fastball and on his slider, the spin was down by 75 RPMs. Anything above 50 is getting to be significant. Anything over 100 is very significant. So 75 and 76, it's something to watch for. Also, the velo on his curveball was down a lot. That's not something I'm as concerned about, because the velo on his other pitches held fine, and actually on the slider was even up. But that spin being down, if you're a pitcher that operates that much in the zone, and Logan Gilbert has a good fastball, he doesn't have like a Tarek Skubal fastball, who we'll talk about in just a moment. But the problem that Gilbert had was that the Phillies just swung at everything early and often and just absolutely pummeled him. And their hard contact rate was quite incredible, actually. The max velocity, exit velocity for his slider and his four-seamer was almost 110. So Logan Gilbert got beat up last night. And I want to see how Logan Gilbert approaches his next start, because the Phillies kind of gave the blueprint for how to approach Logan Gilbert. When he's really racked up a ton of strikeouts, has primarily been against teams that do take a good amount in the zone. The Brewers would be a good example. Even the Brewers right now are probably one of, if not the best teams in baseball. Logan Gilbert absolutely torched him for 10 strikeouts back on July 22nd. And the reason why he did that is because because the Brewers take a ton in the zone. At the time, they had, I think it was almost 6 or 7 out of their 9 guys who took pitches in the zone. And you go down against this man, and I mentioned it yesterday, he's got a 50% strikeout rate. So Phillies didn't do that. They swung early, they swung often, and they got to Logan Gilbert. So that is the way to get to him. Now, moving on to the other ones that we talked about. I said I didn't want anything to do with Paul Skeens because there was no outs prop. And, I know that there were varying opinions on Skeens, but he had a great start. Only threw 6 innings, as we had talked about here too, is that he was probably going to throw either 6 innings or 85 to 90 pitches, whichever came first. That's exactly what he did. He's not going more than 6 the rest of the year. I would be shocked if he did. But in those 6 innings, he got 8 strikeouts. Now, what Skeens did very well yesterday was, because I remember I mentioned this, is that the Blue Jays, the way to strike them out is by making them chase, because they have a lot of aggression. They swing early, they swing often. And if you're going to throw over the plate in the zone, it's tougher to get them because of their zone contact. Now, if you're going to go use your chase stuff, then you can get them. Skeens yesterday had a lot of chase stuff working, and he actually generated a 35% chase rate, which is actually MLB average is about 28%. So you got a 35% chase rate. And when you make the Blue Jays chase, you can get them to strike out. So a tip for anybody who wants to back any pitcher against the Blue Jays going forward is that if you have to look at what their chase rate is and how often do they get guys to swing outside the zone, and how often are they willing to do that. And if they do both, there's a good chance that you can get enough swings and misses. You might give up some hard contact because the Blue Jays are a good hitting team, but you get them to chase enough, they're going to strike out. And then last but not least, I said the line didn't look right. I said it over and over and over again that this line just did not look right. I know I posted on X that I was just totally off of it because Meadroth was batting down and Kira wasn't in the lineup, but should have probably just trusted my original read. Either way, Spencer Strider got obliterated. And the way to beat Spencer Strider from a strikeout perspective is if you don't chase. Now, one of 2 things has to happen. Either one, you're a team that doesn't chase, which the White Sox had 7 of 9 guys that didn't, because Strider really has 2 pitches. He has a slider and his 4-seamer. Then you have to look and see what is his 4-seam velo running at, because when he's running that up to 98, 99, it is an out pitch for him. It's a pitch he can use to get guys to strike out, kind of like Tarek Skubal does, kind of like Zach Wheeler does, and so kind of like Hunter Green, who we're going to talk about later in just a bit, does. It's guys like that. Strider's fastball ran in the 95 to 97 range last night. I hate to say that 97 is average, but it's just kind of like above average for MLB. And he didn't have a ton of movement on it, and the results showed. So I said the line didn't look right with the number of chasers for Spencer Strider. Going forward, if you want to know a really easy, quick trick for how to cap Spencer Strider, don't hit rate and trends and all that stuff. Blah, 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 blah. What you got to look at is how many guys chase and how many guys whiff to a 4-seam fastball. Because if they're not going to chase and they have a whiff rate of 25% or less to a 4-seam fastball, it's going to be hard for Spence to get them. Because really, when that 4-seamer is running in the 95 to 97 rate and you got a bunch of guys that don't whiff to a 4-seamer in general, then you need him to chase. And if they don't chase, that's all the weapons Strider has, because there's some pitchers like Wheeler that throw like 5 or 6 pitches exceptionally well. There's some pitchers that just have overpowering fastballs that can just rear back and say, here, F you, hit this. Jacob deGrom would be one, Tarek Skubal would be another, Hunter Green would be a third. But some guys are just really, really good at doing 1 or 2 things. And Strider is using his fastball to set up his slider. That's what he's really, really good at. But when you run into a team that doesn't chase those pitches and doesn't have a ton of whiff to a 4-seam fastball, it's really tough for Spence to get him. So the Strider read was right on. I just wish that I had told people to put some money behind it. But either way, it didn't cost you anything. The other one, because we talked about it yesterday, I've said this for about 3 months now, and boy, did it hold true last night. Every single time the man pitches, it's the same story over and over again. If you want the easiest way in the world to and yeah, I'm kind of sharing a trade secret here, but I've said it before on this show, is that the easiest way to cap Jack Flaherty, easiest way, is how many guys chase above league average for chase, which you can find on MLB Savant for free. League average for chase is 28.2%. How many guys chase at 30% or above? It's a simple formula. If there's 5 or more, you can go with the over. If there's 3 or less, you can go with the under. If there's 4, then you have to look at how many guys make contact when they chase above league average. If there's half or more that are above 60%, you can probably leave it alone. If the majority of those guys are under the 52, 53% range, because league average is 55, you can run it. So the Astros had 7 of 9 guys in their lineup that chased last night, and only half those guys made contact at league average when they do. The Astros are an aggressive swinging team. It showed. Jack Flaherty, seven strong innings, only 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. They chased like crazy the first time through the order. And then this is one of the reasons why I love Jack so much, is that the second time through, what you saw him do, because I kept watching even after he hit it, because I wanted to see how he approached it. And he was so early, he was going fastball to get fouls, fastball location to get fouls, and then going the chase stuff because he knew they would swing. Second time through, he switched it up and he pitched backwards. I saw him shake off pitches multiple times and then just literally just rear back and just, I mean, I say rear back because Jack only throws about 93 miles an hour right down the gut. And they stood there and watched it. The Astros were totally befuddled last night because Flaherty pitched forwards, then pitched backwards. That was a master class in how to pitch. He didn't have overpowering stuff. His fastball was only at 92, 93. He didn't have, like, his spin was fine. His break was fine. It was just a master class in knowing your opponent. And when you know that, and when you have a team like that, and you have a pitcher that can generate chase, you can get all kinds of whiff with them. So Jack Flaherty, very, very easy cash last night. I think those were the big ones. I want to say, I'm trying to think if there were any other ones that, the only one that, it's actually the only one that we lost in VIP. I said we were 3-1 because I know that a few people asked about him. Robbie Ray got to 6 at the very, very end. Machado was hacking at stupid crap. That was a 50-50 ball. That could have gone either way because he did come out the following, or actually, I'm sorry, he pitched one more inning and didn't strike anybody out. And then I think those were the main ones, I want to say. Yeah, I think that was it. All right, we'll run through the chat. We'll go through 3 pitchers. We have NFL training camp updates. There's a ton of pitchers today, so I actually have notes on a lot of guys. So if we don't cover the pitcher that you were wanting to talk about, please do go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will make sure to get to them. High-level overview at the end, but let's talk some pitchers right before we do. Want to give a shout out to 910J, reposted this stream. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, and thank you for being here. Philip Magruder, good morning to you as well. Thank you for being here. Roger, good morning. Roger, always in the house. Roger, always appreciate you, my friend. And yeah, the White Sox. Yeah, I wish I had said it with more confidence. I said the line had value if you were going to bet that game. I personally didn't hold my nose and be like just because the White Sox against Strider took some cojones. So Roger, thank you for having bigger cojones than I know a lot of people, including myself. So Burke saying I may be somewhat young, but I know the A team. Yep, that's what the reference is from. I love it when a plan comes together. And Roger saying he also cashed plus money for Trevor Rogers K's and a live bet. Awesome. Always good to see. I always like it when we win and the books don't. Who Dat Boy Jay, welcome in and thank you. Reposting the stream. Appreciate you, my guy. Same thing with Mario. Good morning to you. Always appreciate you, my friend. And Lucas R in the house. Thank you and good morning to you as well. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We will go to the board and we will talk 3 pitchers today. But like I said, I know there's a lot of guys going. So it's actually kind of hard to pick who I was going to cover today. But the first guy, I mean, he's been like the strikeout king for, well, most of the year, maybe not his last start, but we do have Tarek Skubal, and the lefty gets a chance to bounce back from a rather ugly start for him, but he's striking guys out at a 32.7% clip, walking guys at a 4% clip. He gets the Astros that we just talked about, and we have a line that is set at 7.5 with plus money on the over and pretty heavily, medium to heavy juiced under. Now, with Tarek Skubal, to this number is 6-4, hitting 8+, and when he's set at this number, he's 3-1. We do have at least some decent pass history with 26.6%, but for a line of 7.5, that's a little on the light side. When you're talking 7.5, you're probably going to want to see, if you're going to go by the pass history, you want to see 30% or over. Now, the one thing I will say with Tarek Skubal, and this has been my take on him for probably about the last 2 or 3 months, is that it's over or nothing. It's just so hard for me to even fathom or try to fathom to take an under on Tarek Skubal because he can run his strikeouts up. Now, you would look at his last start and you would say, oh my God, is something wrong with Tarek Skubal? No, what happened with Tarek Skubal was he got into a game that he didn't have to strike the world out because his team was facing a meh pitching staff and a meh pitcher. And he also was a team that had seen him multiple times this year. It doesn't make a difference if you're who you are when you have a team that has seen you that often and then you get them at home. It can lead to some of the results that you saw when he faced the Twins. And 6 hits and 3 earned runs. It's so funny because if that was a middle of the road 3rd or 4th starter, we wouldn't even pay attention to it, or we'd look at it and be like, okay, that's about what you expect. He's all right. But since it's Tarek Skubal, you think, oh my God, is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong with Tarek Skubal. He's fine. In fact, he's so fine that his outs are set at a 19.5 today, which is on the higher end of what they've been set at. Now, the question here becomes, can he get to 8? So you look at this Astros lineup, and the Astros go mostly righty anyway. And against the lefty, they're for sure, almost assuredly going to go analytical. So I would guess that their lineup will be pretty much something approximating this with all right-handed batters. Now, the thing to look at with Skubal, and this is where you have to parse it out differently, and this is why you can't go back and say, well, they just struck out this many times last night. Jack Flaherty is a completely different pitcher than Tarek Skubal is. Tarek Skubal's fastball average is 98 to 99. Flaherty's 93, 94. Skubal throws a change the majority of the time as his out pitch. Flaherty throws a knuckle curve and a slide. It's apples to oranges. It's completely different. So you have to look at it from the standpoint of what are the Astros going to do today. Now, Tarek Skubal lives in the zone, as we know, 55.5%, which is about 7% above league average. When you look at this Astros lineup, you do see that while they chase a ton, they also have a number of guys that swing a ton in the zone. In fact, they only have 2 guys, them being Correa, or 3 guys, I'm sorry, Correa, Altuve, and I guess Cam Smith is probably pretty much average. So 2 guys that are under league average with Correa and Altuve. Now, of those, both of those guys make extremely good zone contact. And while Skubal has gotten Correa more than a few times, he has struggled to get Altuve. Since coming back to the Astros, Correa's contact metrics have been even better. So you have 2 guys that take in the zone, which if you look at the bottom right, you see that Skubal is about 45% K-ing somebody when he gets ahead. When he gets down 0-2, it's over 50%. But the 2 guys that take in the zone, or that can take in the zone, have 9 strikeouts and 32 plate appearances. Not horrible, but not the best either. So between those two, I'm probably counting on one. Now you go to the guys that swing in the zone. And when I compare that and past history, even though Pena does have an 87.5% zone contact rate, he swings right about league average, but he also has a very high whiff percentage to the changeup. And if you're going to whiff to a changeup, a run-of-the-mill changeup, then you sure as hell are going to whiff to Tarik Skubal's changeup. So with Skubal, I've already gotten him 3 out of 10 times. I have to mark him down for 1. I also have to mark Walker down for 1. He swings aggressively in the zone, but his zone contact is under average. I think that there's a world where Walker doesn't strike out tonight, but I also to me it's far more likely than not. The few guys though after that might be a little bit on the tougher side because not phenomenal whiff percentage against changeups with Yanni Diaz and Caratini, and both of them swing aggressively in the zone. So you hear me saying swing aggressively in the zone over and over again. This is another reason why I think that Skubal's outs prop is up at 19.5, and it is and it's pretty evenly juiced. So I think rather than wanting the strikeouts for Skubal, what I would rather have here is I would potentially rather have the outs and rather take the 19.5, because when you have 7 of 9 guys that swing and make contact in the zone, and you have a pitcher that operates there 55% of the time, and you have 4 guys who are under league average in zone contact of the 9. But you look at Cam Smith at the very bottom, he's not that far under, so he's pretty much an average. So you really only have 3 guys that are under league average in zone contact. You have Walker, you have Urias, and you have Chas McCormick. Now, you look at Urias, and Skubal's gotten him 4 times, but it's in 15 plate appearances. So decent chance that he strikes him out, but could also be just as much of a chance that he swings early and often and puts the ball in play. So where I go with Tarik Skubal here is I see 7 for sure. I see 7. I see 1K an inning, but I do see Skubal potentially going 7 innings tonight. And that would definitely lead to a outs over prop, because even though his outs are up at the 19.5, hits, at least on DraftKings, are down at 4.5, and his earned runs are at 1.5, which tells me where I'm putting together here for Skubal's start is that maybe he gets the Ks, maybe he doesn't. I personally come up with 7 in most instances, but what I see here with all this zone swing and a good amount of zone contact is I see a lot of early swings. So I talked about the Astros being aggressive. You swing early, you put the ball in play, you get early and easy outs, and Skubal goes deep. So the 19.5 outs would be the way that I would look for this one. Right now, you can get it at even money on Caesars. It's -110 everywhere else. But 19.5 outs is not a stretch of the imagination for Skubal. I mean, he's averaging 19 a game. And with this much zone contact, when I look for Skubal to have maybe even a little bit shorter start, but strike out a ton of guys because he's throwing more pitches per plate appearance, I look for teams that take in the zone or teams that have a ton of whiff in the zone. And we don't have that with the Astros. The guys that do make contact in the zone, I mean, you can see Pena, Correa, Altuve, Yanni Diaz, and Caratini. All of them are significantly above league average. You have Cam Smith at average, and you have 3 guys that are under. So that, to me, is adding up to 6 strikeouts for sure, probably 7. 8 is a bridge too far for me. So from a strikeout perspective, I'm off Skubal, but if I wanted anything from this one, I would want his outs at over 19.5. All right, that's Tarik Skubal. Let's talk about a guy who I probably will be interested in some capacity with his strikeouts. Let's talk about Christopher Sanchez. The lefty gets the Mariners. He's striking guys out at a 25.8% clip, walking guys at a 5.9% clip. And we have a 6.5, which has got pretty even juice on both sides. When they do this, I've talked to everybody before about what happens when they set a line like this to start. What this usually means is that they probably think it's a 50-50 shot of either side hitting. And so you juice both sides. and you make money either way. Now this has since shifted a little bit, I believe. Right now we have it right around plus 100 on FanDuel at least. A couple other places are shading it a little bit more towards the over, but basically you have a close to even money juice on both sides. You have his outs, which are actually down from the 18 and a half that they've been at to 17 and a half, albeit juice to the over. But you have hits and earned runs are the same. So let's talk Christopher Sanchez. So Christopher Sanchez is 3-7 to a 6.5 line over his last 10. Or to hitting 7+ strikeouts. He's also 1-3 when he's been set at this number. Not enough past history to make a real determination. So we have to go to our metrics. And what I see from the metrics is with this Mariners lineup, which is 2 lefties and 7 righties, I see a couple things. Number one is the Mariners have been, were, and are going to be a team that is going to whiff in the zone. They have a lot of power hitters with Raleigh, Rodriguez, Suarez, even Garver, who's projected to be in, has some power. Arozarena, they have a lot of power, so they can jack balls. But when you're swinging for the fences, as a lot of them do, what can you also do? You can also whiff. And to the tune of over the last 2 weeks, the Mariners do have a bottom 5 zone contact rate, but a top 5 zone swing rate. They swing a lot in the zone. So if you're going to make guys miss in the zone, and if you're going to operate in the zone, chances are pretty good that you can strike these Mariners out. Now, we have a little bit of a hedge here with Christopher Sanchez because he spends a good chunk of time in the zone. Not a ton. So guys that can obliterate the Mariners are guys that spend 52, 53% or more in the zone and have a zone contact allowed rate of 77, 76 or less. So you can see Sanchez is in the zone 51.3% of the time. He allows 79.3. So it's not the best, but it's not bad either. So now we have to look at how many of these guys are going to whiff in the zone. Well, we have 6 of the 9 that are under league average in zone contact. Now, of those guys, if you go down the list, Arozarena takes a lot of pitches in the zone and then swings out of his shoes. You have Cal Raleigh, who swings aggressively a lot. You have Rodriguez, who swings aggressively a lot. You have Suarez, who swings aggressively. And you also have Garver, who takes. So of these guys in that zone, meaning Arozarena, Raleigh, Rodriguez, Garver, those are the 4 where if you're going to cash a 6.5 for this one, you're going to need to average 1 strikeout each. So you're going to have 4 strikeouts between those 4 guys. There's almost no other way to do it because you have an ultra high zone contact guy in Naylor. And you also have, even though Naylor chases a lot, he also makes contact when he does. You also have Polanco, who makes ultra high zone contact, and you have Crawford, who makes great contact on both sides and does not have a high whiff percentage to any of the pitches that Sanchez throws. So Naylor, Polanco, and Crawford are the 3 that you're not going to want in this lineup if you want to back Sanchez on an over. Now, is it possible Crawford's out? Maybe. I mean, they could go straight analytical, but there's not a whole lot of other guys that the Mariners could put in that would be a better fit or a better choice for this besides J.P. Crawford. So I'm guessing that the final lineup will be something approximating this. So you're going to have to deal with Polanco, Crawford, and Naylor. Now, on a 6.5 line, that's 3 potential dead spots right there. That's usually my delineation point for saying, I'm not sure I want this. Because when you have to get 7 strikeouts, that almost guarantees you're going to have to get somebody twice. Now, can he get somebody twice? In this Mariners lineup, of course he can. He can get Raleigh. He can get Raleigh twice, even though Raleigh adjusts pretty well. Typically, you could get Gino Suarez twice, but Gino has faced him 5 times and has only struck out once. You could potentially get Garver twice, but Garver also doesn't chase. He doesn't make contact when he does, but Garver doesn't chase. And Sanchez's chase stuff is actually better than his zone stuff. His slider and his changeup are wicked. And you can see it with the 51.4% chase contact rate allowed. He also gets guys to chase above league average. So if you're not going to chase, then like I said, Sanchez's zone stuff, I mean, it's above average. I'll put it that way. If Tarek Skubal's zone stuff for making guys miss is an A plus, Christopher Sanchez is like B minus, somewhere in the B range. It's not bad by any means. It's his chase stuff that's even better. So with this Mariners team, you have a number of guys who are willing to chase, but about half of those make contact. So it's a lot of different metrics, but I come up with 6 in this instance. And so I in no way am going to look to take an under on the Mariners on the road against a pitcher like Christopher Sanchez. The saving grace and why I might be able to be talked into Christopher Sanchez in some capacity is that the man has had some reasonably, I mean, lately it's been kind of up and down, but he has had a lot of good strikeout performances at home. So 12 against Boston. He's gotten 10 or 12 or 10, 11 or 10 against San Francisco. Even a Padres team that wasn't striking out at all and had great zone contact, he still got them for 5. So I'm not a huge fan of this one at its regular line. What I am a fan of is if you want this in some capacity, I would put this down. I would pull this down and play 6 with something else. The other thing that I like a lot would be because the Mariners have a number of guys that swing in that can swing aggressively here. You can see in the zone swing, Raleigh 78. Rodriguez 76, Naylor 73, Suarez is over, Moore is over. I might be more interested in the outs for this one. Now, it's set, the juice on the over 17.5 is just dumb. So I'm not that interested in that. But 18.5, if you give me this lineup in this order, I might be willing to take a small shot, not a huge shot, but a small shot on the over 18.5 and hope that Sanchez pitches into the 6th inning. Reason being is because you do have a lot of zone swing. So you can have a guy who can get a lot of balls put in to play. Sanchez is also a sinker baller. And this, I mean, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This has been like all but acknowledged is that, well, Houston does it too, but Philadelphia, when they have their sinker baller, when they have a sinker baller on the mound like this, there has been a tendency to overwater the infield. What happens when you overwater the infield before the game is it becomes soggy. Ground balls don't go as far. You have a sinker baller. When you throw a sinking fastball, you throw it high, it sinks down into the zone. The batter swings on top of it and hits a ground ball to the infield. So that's typically what happens when you have a sinker baller on the mound. Sanchez is their best sinker baller. So I might be more apt to take the outs here. And if I want strikeouts, I'm probably going to have to pull this one down to 6 and want to pair it with something else, or just take 6 and put 1 unit straight up on it, because Sanchez's zone stuff, as I said, it's good, but it's not elite. And you need elite zone stuff for me to want to take a high number like this against the Mariners. So like it, but don't love it. All right. Last but not least, and then we'll cover other stuff. Hunter Green now. When I talked about how I'm not quite sure about the other 2 guys and their strikeouts, I'm pretty sure about this one. Hunter Green, striking guys out at a 30.6% clip, walking guys at a 5.4% clip. He gets the Angels, and we have a line that's set on purpose, sky high at a 7.5, minus 105, minus 125. I don't care. Let's dive into this one. this is one where there's going to be very, very few lineups that are going to keep me off some combination of the over for this one. First of all, Green spends an even higher percentage of his time in the zone than Tarek Skubal does, 56.4%. Not only does he do that, he also allows just as little contact as Tarek Skubal does at 76.2%. That's elite. The other thing with this is that not only do you have 5 guys in this lineup that make contact under league average in the zone, you have a couple guys at the bottom, Hoppy and Teodosio. Ooh, 75% or less. That's a strikeout waiting to happen against Hunter Green, as is Moncada. The other thing you have is up top. If you look at between Shanuel, Trout, and Ward, well, Shanuel is not a strikeout candidate. Trout and Ward can be, and both of those guys swing 10% under league average in the zone. If you're going to take against this guy, you can see it in the bottom right, 43.5 when he gets ahead. It's over 50% when he gets on 0-2 and almost 50% when he gets on 1-2. So you have Trout, you have Ward, you have Moncada, you have Ohapi, and you have Teodosio, all of whom likely will strike out, all of whom can strike out multiple times. So that gets you to 4, possibly 5. Then you go to Neto, who has zone contact under league average and also has a first pitch strike percentage 3% above league average and a healthy whiff percentage to a splitter, which is Green's main out pitch against righties. You have that high of a first pitch strike percentage, you can see what Hunter Green does. That's another potential strikeout. So now we're at 5. Now we're at potentially 6. And that's without, so even if we take Shaniel out, that's without Adele and that's without Rengifo. Adele, the only reason why I didn't put him as a full 1 is because he does swing a lot in the zone and makes contact slightly above league average. The problem here becomes is that second time through, Green tends to go with his chase stuff a little bit more, and you can see Adele swings aggressively outside of the zone too, and his chase contact is absolutely abysmal. So that's the only reason why I couldn't put him as a full 1. But if he does that, that can be an easy strikeout as well. That could actually be 2 strikeouts depending on how deep Green goes. So I'm already at 6 or 7 just off the top of my head math, and that assumes that he doesn't sneak one by Shaniel, and it also assumes that he doesn't do anything with Rengifo, which also could potentially happen. Shaniel not so much, but Rengifo, yes. Now there's nobody else in the Angels locker room or on their bench that they could put in that would make me not at least have this number set at 7.75 at a baseline. And again, that's without getting anybody twice. There are 5 to 6 guys in this lineup who very easily could K, and half of those could K twice. So this is an absolute clear overshot here. The other thing that if you were worried about just because he's just coming back from being on the injured list is Hunter Green did throw several simulated games prior to coming back and threw near 90 pitches. He also threw 85 pitches in his first start back against the Phillies, and his outs prop is set at 17.5, indicating basically 6 innings. So if you're worried about that, don't be, because they've been ramping Hunter Green up behind the scenes so he can go deep. This isn't a situation where where he does like 1 rehab start and then you bring him back and he goes 5, then 5 1/3, and so forth. Hunter Green is built back up and he's ready to roll. And so there is just so much potential for strikeouts in this lineup. Now, if for whatever reason, this is highly unlikely to happen. If for whatever reason Shanuel is out of this lineup, it makes no difference who they put in. You have to go with the over. And depending on what the line movement is post lineup release, and depending on what the lineup construction is, because there are a few guys that they could put in for me that would make it even better for an over, I might be looking at an alt as well. Now, one thing I'll warn you about when you're doing alts, because this is a 7.5 on the road to begin with, some people like to just go just like 10, 11, 15, 30, 300. 10's a lot of strikeouts. It's a lot of strikeouts. So if you're going to go 8 as a standard bet, I would go a tiny bit on 9, maybe half of what you put on there if you're going to ladder it, and maybe a quarter or less on 10, because 10's a lot of strikeouts in 6 innings. So what you might be better off doing is just taking that extra and just adding it on to the 7. Or another way you can do it is, because right now we do have the 8 sitting at plus 110. What you can do is you can put 1 unit straight up on 7. It'll be juiced and take the reduced payout. And then you can put 0.75 units on the 8, and you actually have less risk that way and a higher payout. But this is just, I mean, when I was running this one, and again, I run these before I see the lineup, before I see the line itself. The whole time I was running it, I'm like, it's like that Jack Nicholson gif where he's like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, K, couple Ks, K. If even a reasonable version of Hunter Green shows up tonight, this could just be strikeout city. So the line is high for a reason. And I would tell you again, don't worry about the innings, because he did throw simulated games before that and threw 85 pitches in his return. His line is set that he's going to go 6 innings. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. All right. Let's talk about some other looks, sides, totals, etc. I see a few comments from the chat. I also wanted to say shout out to Mom Who Bets. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here. And Roger saying, can Shigano get 4Ks? That's all I ask. Roger, man, you like to live dangerously. Taking the White Sox, taking Shigano. Can Shigano get 4Ks? Yeah, sure he can. He can. He can, based on how I'm seeing the line. My only thought is, like, is he going to just get beat to hell before that happens and yanked? If he pitches what he's supposed to pitch, which would be 5, maybe 5 1/3 innings, I think that 4Ks is possible to do. Roger saying I took Sanchez to 6 and also Hunter Brown to 6 for plus money. You could do that. Speaking of Hunter Brown, let's talk about Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown, I don't mind Hunter Brown. I still see no outs prop for this game. For Hunter Brown, I should say. I see it for Scooble. Hunter Brown is 5-5 to this number in his last 10, averaging 6 Ks per. To me, the line is trading on the Tigers' strikeout potential, because Brown does have 25 strikeouts and 84 plate appearances against his projected lineup, so 29.8%. So for me, it would be an over or nothing situation. I am with you, Roger, in that I prefer the 6 a lot more than I prefer the 6.5, at least until I can see an outs prop, because hits and earned runs look good at 4.5 and 1.5. My problem is, without an outs prop, it's hard to decipher, because you give me 4.5 and 1.5 on those two, and you say the guy's going to go 6+ innings. That means it's going to be a good start. You do that and you drop his outs. What that potentially means is that he's either going to have a shortened start for whatever reason, innings limitation, whatever, or he's going to throw a lot of pitches and walk the line of that because of the reduced outs. So the other thing that I see here too for Hunter Brown is Hunter Brown has thrown 143 innings so far this year. The Astros likely going to the playoffs, and his career high for innings is 170. So he is only 27 innings off of that, and he has way more than 27 innings worth of starts the rest of the year. So you figure an average Hunter Brown start is about 5 to 6 innings. Even if you say 6, you can do the math about 27 divided by 6, and you can see that it's not that many starts. It's probably about 4, it's actually 5 starts, and he's got more than 5 starts the rest of the season. So possible that they could limit his innings. Not sure if that's actually going to happen. That's why I don't mind taking them down. Kid Keon in the house saying, for Sanchez, I get better value on 17.5 outs than 6+ Ks. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to wait to see the lineup first, because I want to make sure that we have this many people who swing, because you have this many people who swing, and then you have a lot more balls put in play, a lot shorter inning, the shorter pitch counts, because Sanchez has faced teams that have a tendency. The last few starts, they've had a number of guys that take when he tries to throw his chase stuff, and so his zone stuff has kind of been iffy, and so then he's racked up his pitch count and can't get out of the 5th or 6th inning. But if it's against this lineup, I think that the game plan very easily can just be to attack the zone and make them put it into play, and you'll either get a ground ball or you can get some quick outs. So to answer your question, Kid Keon, if it's the lineup that's projected, the one that I put on the screen, then I think that the over 17, I think that the 17 and a half outs probably would have more value. Yes. Roger saying, seems like every night there's always one pitcher that gets 10 Ks. Green can be that guy. Yep, he for sure can. Green can be that guy 100% tonight. He's there's just the only guy in that lineup that he can't get is Sean Yell. That's the only one, or not can't get, but would be very, very tough to get. And Kid Keon asking thoughts on Rodon, Peterson, Rodon again, and Max. If you had Kid Keon, if you meant to put somebody else besides Rodon, because you put him twice, just drop the name right below it, because I know there's a lot of guys going today. So Carlos Rodon, yeah, the lineup for the Rays is very top and bottom heavy from a strikeout perspective. So you have Kim, you have Diaz, you have Simpson, and all three of those guys, and you have Fortes, who are in the projected. So the 1, the 2, the 8, and the 9. So you have 8, 9, 1, 2, who are all ultra low K guys, and you might probably get 1, you might get 2 Ks from those guys, but I would guess you probably, realistically, you'll get 1 from those 4 guys. Now, when you're at a 6, it's hovering between 6.5 and 5.5, and I see why, because then you look at the rest of the lineup, and man, there are strikeouts galore across a few of the rest of the lineup spots. Pereira, the kid, who is almost tailor-made to strike out to Rodon. Christopher Morel, who's a walking strikeout anyway, but chases a ton and makes no contact when he does, and is struck out 5 out of 10 times. I really, really hope if you want the over for Rodon, you want Morel in. If you want the under for Rodon, which is where I might lean towards, you can't have Morel in. You can't have Morel in. You can't have Pereira in. One of the two would be okay if you have the other 4. So sum total for Rodon, if I'm going to look at an under here, I need to have Kim, Diaz, Simpson, and Fortes. I need all 4 of them in. I can't have both Pereira and Morel. If that's the case, it's probably just a total stay off, and you're in the no man's land of Rodon getting 5, 6, or 7, and maybe lightning will strike and you'll catch a line that you hit, but the juice you're going to pay, to me, just isn't worth it. Now, if we get no Morel or no Pereira, then this is a pretty clear under spot. If we get one of the 2 out of the lineup, then you can also look under. So it's really going to be lineup dependent. Brandon Lowe, I would prefer, isn't in. He struck out 5 out of 11 times. He chases and has terrible chase contact, which is the key for Rodon. But I'm guessing we're going to get him. It's Morel and Pereira are the 2 that I'm just cringing at. Now, if Morel and Pereira are both in and they go almost all righties, and they bench Brandon Lowe, and when I say Lowe, I mean Brandon Lowe, not Josh. If they're going to bench Brandon Lowe, I can potentially live with that one. So totally lineup dependent. David Peterson, he shouldn't really be at a 5.5 based on how he's been pitching and striking guys out. And he shouldn't be at an even money, even juice, basically 5.5. So that would lead me to the over. The past history is not the greatest for him. So, I mean, he's only been at a 5.5 2 times in his last 10 starts, and he hit it against Baltimore. He missed it against Atlanta, but he's had a number of starts where, I mean, he's just kind of hovers in that 4 to 5 strikeout range. So then the question is, will he get another one, or can he get another one? Past history against his lineup says he can't. So there's too many conflicting factors for this one. I just decided to just toss that one on the dock. And then Max Scherzer, the past history certainly says that you should look for the over on this one. The only thing that I'm looking for here is that Max is not making guys miss when they chase. And that's where the Pirates' weakness has been. They have 7 of 9 guys in the projected lineup that are under league average for chase contact. But you also don't have a lot of guys who do chase in the projected. Only IKF, who's high contact and doesn't strike out to Max anyway, and Gonzalez, who is potentially a strikeout candidate. So Max is going to have to operate in the zone. His zone contact has been decent, but he's going to have to get early strikes on these guys. And so I want to see how many guys in this Pirates lineup are going to swing out or in the zone, or how many are going to take. Right now in the projected lineup, you have 4 of the 9 that swing below league average in the zone, which would allow Max, with his zone rate, to get strike one, which ups their K potential exponentially. So guys that I would not want in, if I'm looking to run it that way, Triolo would for sure, I wouldn't want in. And I also would probably prefer that Reynolds is not in either, even though they'll both, I'm sure, be in. So Max is a guy where it's going to be over or nothing for me, especially because past history, he's only faced really Pham and McCutchen, but against those two guys, he does have a strikeout percentage near 40%. So this is an over or nothing spot because there's way more options out here, way more combinations where he gets 6 than where he does not. So Mario saying, check out how many bullpen guys we had to use yesterday. Brown might go 6 innings or close to it. You did use a lot of bullpen guys yesterday. That is very true, because Arrighetti did not have the greatest start. So I'm just interested to see what they set his outs prop at. I'm really interested because there isn't one right now. And Kevin Roth WX had said that there is the potential for some showers, but probably not during the game. J-Main34, welcome in, says Tanner Bybee under 17.5 outs. D-backs allowed one pitcher to get to over 17.5 last 13. All right, if you're interested in that one, Tanner Bybee under 17.5 outs. And Kid Keon saying the other pitcher I meant to put was Seth Lugo. Lugo's line is pretty much set at average for me. I didn't find a lot of value on either side of it. So I mean, he's averaging 4 to 5 strikeouts per game. It's set at 4 to 5 strikeouts with even juice. His outs are set at 17.5. Is like literally they set him at average for this one. So I didn't find a lot of value in the line. When I go to some of the past history, he's it kind of tells the same story. Like Seager, he's 1 for 8 against, but he's gotten Jock Peterson 6 out of 17 times. He's also gotten Wyatt Langford all 3 times he's faced him. So for me, I think it's probably a 50-50 shot if he gets 4 or he gets 5, and both sides are juiced, which to me tells me that there's just not enough value either way. I think that if you want to pull Lugo down to 4 and put him in a parlay or of some kind, that to me is the much safer option. If you told me that I had to pick like an over or under for strikeouts, I couldn't even do it for like this one is literally 50-50. And I also think that he's getting 4 or he's getting 5, which most books that allow you to do bands. So sometimes you can do like strikeouts exactly or strikeouts bands. Most of them, the bands are 3-4 and 5-6, and they're separated for that reason. So it's too bad there wasn't a band for 5 or for 4-5, because if there was, and that was at plus money, might be worth some lunch money. But Lugo is like literally right on the right on the cusp. So Mario asking thoughts on Joe Ryan, Woodruff, and Peterson. Peterson I already talked about. Joe Ryan. ugh, I thought I wanted Joe Ryan when I woke up this morning too, but man, they're making it way too easy to bet him. He's had some trouble. He's had some trouble with racking up his pitch count over each of his last four starts. I know he got 7 against the Yankees, but that was a struggle. He didn't get that till late. And last 4 starts, 7.5, 4.5, and he's been okay, but not phenomenal. And for a pitcher that is minus 135 at best, it's minus 140, minus 145 in a lot of different spots. That's just not enough for me. So I'm probably going to leave him alone. He's another guy that I would feel much more comfortable pulling him down to the 6 and pairing him with something else. Woodruff, who is going in game 2 today because the game 1 was postponed. It's going to depend on what lineup they put out there. Actually, I know some books have a line set already, but it's going to depend on who is in. I think that I'm going to consider his last start against Pittsburgh more of an aberration than a trend, especially when the only thing that I worry about with Woodruff is the same thing that happened with him in his last start, is that he's being babied because, I mean, the guy hasn't pitched in almost like close to 2 years. So when you have a guy like that, you want to make sure, and you're going to the playoffs for sure, you want to make sure that you have him at his best. And so there was, I saw the talk about like Vegas made the call and why did they pull him at 65 pitches? Shit's rigged, blah, blah, blah. No. This is a team that's protecting who is going to be a guy they're going to count on and rely on in the playoffs. They need Woodruff. They need Freddie Peralta. That's absolute, because while they have a lot of weapons, the overall and Mizorowski, are you going to trust him in a crunch time playoff spot? I mean, I'm sure he'll pitch in the playoffs, but he's still a kid. And people are starting to unlock the secret of his blazing fastball. So you need Woodruff and you need Peralta. So my concern with Woodruff, which is why I really want to see with Woodruff, is what they set his outs at after I see the lineup, because there's such a wide range of outcomes that I'm not sure that I want to take a shot on that one. So in summary, Joe Ryan, I would pull down to 6 and pair it with something. David Peterson would be over or nothing, just because of the way that the line is set. And Woodruff, I want to see his outs first, because I just have nightmares of, he's pitching pretty well, and then at 70 pitches, all of a sudden it's like, oh, see ya, bye. It also is going to depend too on how many relievers does Milwaukee use in the first game, because if they're going to use a bunch of pitchers in the first game, they might need Woodruff to go longer. So, and AOD in the house, thank you for joining. Appreciate you. In Spin Doc we trust. Appreciate that trust and appreciate the trust that you guys place in me. So thank you to everybody, because everybody has limited gambling budgets, and so I appreciate that you listen to me and put your faith and trust in me. All right, let's look at some other looks, sides, totals, and let's see if we can get another big juicy. Let's see if we can get another big juicy money line like we got Roger with the White Sox the other day. So let's check out here. So we have, I think that the Astros money line has some value at plus 143. Not to say Scooble's going to have a bad start, but the Astros money line has some value. I think that the Cardinals money line has some value as well. Edward Cabrera has some up and down history against a number of these guys. So plus 130, there's some value there. I think that run them again, Roger. The White Sox plus 145 has value again. Yeah, it's a much less difficult hill to climb with Bryce Elder than it is with Spencer Strider. I think that the Rays money line has some value at plus 110. Those are my money lines. And for those of you that might be tuning in for the first time, or just don't know, is that the only leans that I give on baseball money lines are ones that are plus money. I don't find a lot of value in betting money line dogs in MLB. Teams are just too evenly matched. So I would much rather take, for example, like 3 like plus money dogs like I just gave than to take the Dodgers at home once. Not because I don't think the Dodgers are amazing and that they're going to win even, but to take the Dodgers or the Yankees at like minus 200 at home, to me, I would much rather take 3 plus money shots, split my units up that way, because I only need to win 1 out of 3 that way to really to be profitable than to win 1 out of 1. So long story, tons of math behind that I can get to another time. But from a totals perspective, not a ton of totals are popping here. I think that the Athletics and Twins under 8.5, that would probably match up with the pitchers that are going. Under 8.5 has some value here. The under 8 in Yankees Rays has a little bit of value. The Rangers team total under has a little bit of value, which kind of goes into, like, I think that Lugo will pitch a good game. I'm not sure about the strikeouts, and I think that'll do it. So let's talk some, before we get out of here, let's talk some NFL training camp updates. All right, NFL training camp. First thing I wanted to talk about is, if you have a draft coming up and you have Brian Robinson anywhere on your draft board, don't do that anymore. Brian Robinson was held out of last night's preseason game, and there's reports galore that he will be traded or released. If you're in VIP, you knew this a month and a half ago, because I have been talking about this guy for quite a while now, the rookie, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And so Krosky-Merritt has been working with the starters, and what the team loves about him is they love his juice. They love his playmaking ability. They love his east-west to get to the sideline and hit the hole. He had a wonderful 27-yard touchdown run where he just burst through the hole and outran everybody. The other thing that they have is they have Chris Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez is a mauler. So they have kind of the fire and ice combo, or like Sonic and Knuckles that you would have with Montgomery and with Gibbs in Detroit. Not as good, but a little bit different version. But Brian Robinson just doesn't fit, because Brian Robinson is more of another north-south runner, but he doesn't have the muscle and the girth that Chris Rodriguez does. So the team wanted a playmaker to pair with Jaden Daniels, because if there's another weapon that you have to focus on who can get to the sidelines, you're making teams cover so much ground side to side that it can open more lanes up for Daniels to safely run. So JCM is a guy that is rocketing up draft boards. If you have a draft in the next day or two, better hope that your league mates are using magazine drafts or cheat sheets that haven't been updated, because one more week of this with this kid, and if Robinson gets traded or released, and you're going to be like, oh man, I missed the train. If you're in a dynasty league, he should be drafted in every dynasty league, not even a question. And while I don't think that he's going to be a guy who's going to be like 20 carries and be able to carry your fantasy team, et cetera, he is a guy that the team believes in, and he has the skill set that Brian Robinson does not. So Brian Robinson is completely off my draft boards. I'm not even touching him. I'm not drafting him until I know exactly where he's going. Somebody else can take the chance on that. But Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt he's been working with the starters. And again, Robinson's not even playing. So he's either going to be traded or released, most likely. Another situation to update is Quinshon Judkins. So the rookie for the Browns, and you might think, well, he's on the Browns, who cares? No, this kid's got some this kid's got some juice. This kid's got some athleticism and had a clear path to the starting running back spot. Now, if you already had a draft and you drafted him, you shouldn't panic, but you should know that he is still unsigned by the team. The reason why they didn't sign him originally was because there was an incident at the Miami airport where he was in a car arguing with a woman who identified herself as his girlfriend. And words were exchanged, and Judkins said something to the effect of, "We're done," or "I'm done with you." The woman didn't like that. They argued some more, and it ended, allegedly, with Judkins either slapping her or smacking her in the face, to which she called police. Now, there were not charges filed, and there's no conviction, which likely means that he and the alleged victim worked it out, and she's not going to press charges. But the NFL may investigate the allegation, and the team may not sign him until they do. What I can tell you with this, though, is that without a conviction, without a legal conviction, the NFL Players Association is highly unlikely to accept any kind of discipline, even for a rookie. So the precedent has always been they let the legal process play out. And if the courts say that you're guilty, or if you tell the court that you're guilty, then you face punishment from the league as well. So if you're drafting Judkins, just hang on to him. Don't change his draft value. You might see stuff about not signed and what are they going to do. This kid is their best running back on the roster. Well, he's not on the roster, but that they have already. And so I think that they're being careful, and they're just making sure that there won't be anything further that comes from this. But we don't know if this will drag out into the regular season, but don't let this change your valuation of Quinshon Judkins. And then last but not least is, I mean, if you know anything about football and have a brain about football, you would know that this is going to happen. People on X are wild. Joe Flacco was named the starter for the Cleveland Browns, as he should have been. Dylan Gabriel and Shadir Sanders both have had good preseasons. They're not. Neither one of them are ready to take the starting job right now. Nobody will convince me otherwise. So please, nobody should try. Joe Flacco is the right choice for week one. He knows the offense. He's played there for 2 years. He has familiarity. And you're not going to turn the keys over to two rookies right away. So both of those guys are going to be on the roster. Both of those guys should learn. Now, when it comes to Shadir Sanders, just because obviously he generates a lot of buzz and a lot of hype and whatever, I said this to VIP, and I'll say this again here. Is Shadir Sanders, in my view, ready to take a full-time starting job on an NFL team? No. Is he a lot more ready than people who were hating on him for dropping to the 5th round and people who don't like him because of his persona or whatever? Yes. So he's not as ready as some people on 4-letter networks might think, but he's not as unready as some people who would hate on him because of who he is might think. I do think that Shadir Sanders will start at some point this year for the Cleveland Browns, but the right choice was, and should be Joe Flacco from the beginning. What my take on the Browns offense for week one, the only guy that I'm really interested in would be Jerry Jeudy. Every other wide receiver at camp has looked bad. Deontay Johnson has reportedly looked abysmal. So on an offense that doesn't project to score a lot of points anyway, I would not touch Deontay Johnson. Jerry Jeudy, I would maybe draft a little bit later. And Cedric Tillman, I think that you can draft at the very, very end of drafts. But that's for the receivers. And then the only guy that I would take at average draft position right now would be David Njoku. All right, that'll do it. Let's go through the chat one time, and we'll get on out of here. A lot of questions today. I figured there would be because of the big slate. Thank you to 910J. Thank you to Philip. Thank you to Roger. Thank you to Berg. Who Dat Boy Jay, Mario, Lucas, Mom Who Bets, Kid, Keon, J Main, and AOD. Thank you all so much. Just as a reminder, this show is brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please do check us out for all of the daily content. We do appreciate the love. Follow me at Spin Doc Sports. Like the video. Thank you so much. Back tomorrow with more analysis, pitchers, NFL stuff, whole bunch more content. Best of luck in all your action today. We'll see you.